They're coming in.
Okay. Hey, good morning. I think we're going to give it another minute just to make sure we got everybody in. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I always want to hear what y'all have to say. I do have a couple of things I want to touch on before we get started, but if there's something that people feel they need to talk about, I'm always happy to hear that. I've gotten a lot of feedback about the state of the district. It was very different than what we've had in the past, and I appreciate the feedback that I've received. And to be fair, I think it is right to ask, especially in a town like Atlanta, to ask our corporate leaders to support us in supporting our schools who need us the most, because there are a lot of areas, or the majority of our areas, that don't have the same type of support that others have in different parts of the city. And I am not by any means dismissing the feedback that I've gotten about the expense of what it costs. I just wish it had been positioned a little bit differently. However, I respect the fact of the ask. And so, as y'all know, I try to keep these things open and not on my tally. So I would respect to hear what people have to say about the state of the district.
Hey, Michelle. Good morning. This is Waukesha.
Hey, Waukesha, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really great. I will just say that
you know, we have a
I know that is not Keith interrupting me when she said she wanted to hear. Hold up, Keith. Let me go raise my hand now.
I know.
Okay, I got you.
Okay.
Yeah, y'all didn't tell us the rules this morning.
Waukesha, give me a second. My fault. Just raise your hand on the Zoom app, and if you can't raise your hand on the Zoom app, that's fine, because it is a bit tricky. Even though we've been doing this for a couple of years, you're more than welcome to, and I'll stick my number in the chat. You're more than welcome to text me or tell me. I want to be fair. All right, let's go, Waukesha.
Okay, is that better, Keith? You want to do your little spiel first?
You have the floor.
Waukesha, I'll just tell you what I tell him. His pay will be deducted this week. No worries. Okay. All right.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I appreciate y'all. And I appreciate this meeting, Michelle, because I can say, you have everybody to come to your meeting, which I don't get to see that all the time, so I do appreciate that. Just a little feedback. You're absolutely correct. You know, other parts of the city don't have a lot of resources as some. I get that. My only concern about, you know, what happened is, do the corporations, the nonprofits, do they not think it's okay to invest in our kids already before, you know, we have to put out? Because, you know, if we look at the news, and some of us do, we have a lot of big companies laying off people. So we have this vision for 36, right? That vision might have to change. So did we really just waste a lot of money trying to appeal to a few people when 2036 could look different? You know, we got teachers that need a lot of support. We got kids that need a lot of support, and their family. You know, I said this, you know, I'm concerned about how the enrollment is declining severely. You know, I think a lot of us just think the money could have been spent a little better. And I do want to say, for the record, to be fair, because I think Travis know I go to all the Go Team meetings. You know, some schools do get a lot of resources. It's just not broadcast. And we have to hold our principals and the Go Team accountable for making sure that the resources get to those kids, and we have the best people in place. So I do think that we did possibly waste some money, and I'm a little nervous because I'm like 2036 could look different because of what I'm seeing in the economy right now. Like, we got thousands, tens of thousands of layoff from big companies, you know. So it was a waste. I'm sorry. Y'all sign a petition as well. Thank you.
Waukesha, I hear you and I appreciate your feedback. I think we all do. Just to give everybody some levity with respect to this conversation, I call it my big fat Greek wedding. It was a lot of money to make a point, and I hope we've made a point. I do believe in speaking with the mayor and other folks who have his ear, that there is a concern to kind of, I don't know what the right term is, but to kind of put together something that would help all the children across the city. So while I respect that there's been a lot of negative feedback about the state of the district, it's interesting to see how we could leverage what did happen there to make something better for where we want to go as a city, and just respect the fact that maybe it wasn't the right call, and just give it some grace and move forward with respect to where we need to go. Are you good, Waukesha?
Well, I totally understand that, and you know, unfortunately, you included the mayor. We had to give. We are possibly giving back $10 million on the mayor's side that could have came over to the schools. And Keisha, y'all, let me know if y'all knew about that. That could have went to the parents and the children, so that, you know, they could stay in their schools and their community. Please go and look at possibly my Twitter, Instagram, either one. The parents over in the Forest Cove, they are, well, what we said came out to be true. They are not being treated the way they should, right?
Right.
So
Right.
APS lost 200 of those kids. Not all of them. Some of them maybe was able to stay in the city. I just think our leaders can put these resources in a better place to help the kids and their families. You know, we see Lisa in pictures with the mayor all the time, and we don't got kind of tired of it, especially when we got so many kids that not reading on grade level. Ma'am, listen, I got you. No more pictures. Let's get down to the nitty gritty and let's see how we can help move these babies forwards. And if it's something in the community, that's why we have community partners, and that's why we have the mayor, Invest Atlanta, whomever, that can, you know, support the community and, you know, lift up these families. But the truth be told, we not seeing it. And we can't be mad at certain people when we know who our leaders are and who have the authority or, you know, be in a position to help make some change, and we're not seeing the change. So I respect your answer, well received, but I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Lisa and Akeem, I see y'all. I just want to give Mr. Drake a moment to talk about facilities, if he will, given kind of the rumor mill of what's going on there, because he's got to go at 10 or before 10.
Yep. And so community, we do ask, I know we have Lisa and Akeem hand raised. And so I would ask if anyone has any questions as it relates to anything related to facilities, to please raise your hand so that Mr. Drake can address that.
Or it's, maybe it's in the chat and I don't have the chat up. So let me get that up.
And Keith, this is Pierre. Just want to make sure we give Lisa and Akeem, if you have anything regarding facilities, we're not overlooking you, but we just want to make sure that we address those
Okay.
questions.
Here's somebody, hold on, give me a second, because there is, oh, Tim, I see you here. The capacity, it seems like we've got a couple
Yeah,
of.
that was directed to you.
That's fine. Okay, I can answer that offline. Lisa, do you want to talk?
Yes, if we've moved on, if we're able to go back to state of the district, I'll have a question about that later. I'm gonna repeat the questions that I asked in Katie Howard's meeting last week about facilities, and these are really just more comments, hopeful considerations, hopefully, for going into the facilities and the capacity discussions. My first question was, when we are discussing the facilities, I hope that we go back to the focus group feedback. And if some of the considerations were not feasible, I hope we get an explanation about why. It's just helpful, I think, to draw the line from feedback gotten from the community to final solutions or suggestions. I, as a parent who kind of lives at the edge of some of the districts, at the edge of some of the school zones, I'd like to understand if there are guidelines about how far students should live from a high school, a middle school, and a elementary school when lines are drawn, just in terms of just setting expectations, if there's guidelines, if there's expectations, either mile wise or time wise. Atlanta's a big city and there's a lot of traffic. And my last question or comment going into these discussions is about the different signature programs that each of the clusters have chosen. I feel like that kind of limits changes that can happen if you've got an existing high school or maybe in 9th or 10th grade who doesn't qualify possibly for grandfathering, whatever that looks like, and zones are redrawn. What does their experience look like if they're moved from, say, a STEM high school to an IB high school, or vice versa? So I just kind of am curious if these kinds of considerations are being thought about in the background as we go into these high school capacity discussions. Thank you.
Lisa, I think that's great. Mr. Drake, I'm not going to put you on the spot with the academics, but I will ask you to follow up with Ms. Brown when you have a chance, just to kind of make sure y'all are working together to figure out what this looks like. But if you have anything to offer, I would appreciate you responding to Lisa.
Sure, I'm gonna let Travis take the first and the third. I'm gonna just talk about the guidelines about how far for elementary, middle, high school. Basically, for how far we're looking at is it's all relative. And so basically what we're looking at is our new board policy AED, Alpha Dog, which was approved by the board in January, lays out the criteria. One of the criteria is proximity to schools. And what we're looking for is, if you are in a walk zone, that would be one area that we would like to keep students in a walk zone. Even if you're in a walk zone of another school, that you have a better opportunity to be, maybe you should be in that other school. So those are the things that we're looking at. I don't think there's any hard and fast distance or time number like you referenced. Atlanta does have a lot of traffic. We do have a lot of, I will give you an example of North Atlanta High School. We have very long existing distances and times for those students, for some of the students who do go to North Atlanta High School, just based on the size of that attendance area. So it's going to be all relative, and it's something that we look at relative to each other. So it's and the other piece is, if we're looking at one thing to remember is, if we're looking at a distance to a high school, and because of our cluster, we try to keep the one middle, one high school together. If there's going to be some type of redistricting of one high school to another, we will need to be looking at the distances from the relative middle schools as well. And I'll let Travis
Yeah,
address
and
them.
I'll try to tackle 1 and 3. Lisa, the first one was about solutions from this fall, and yes, you'll see that today at noon and 6 that in the past facilities conversations has really been, either redistricting or adding space, but no other scenarios. So I think you'll see kind of us walk through what those short versus long-term school versus district solutions could be. We'll share that. Also, in connection with Mr. Drake talking about proximity as part of the policy, I put, it's long in the chat, but the kind of key points of the board policy on considerations for redistricting, of to which proximity is one. There is another on there about equity impacts and access to instructional programs. And so we do look at the academic impact and what it would look like to switch, particularly as our clusters have clear feeder patterns on signature programs. And so that is definitely taken into consideration. We have internal working groups that include CTAE, social emotional learning, family engagement, academics, everybody to kind of review the solutions as well.
Lisa, are you good?
Yes, I just kind of wanted to reiterate, I know this is a smaller discussion, so just kind of putting those out there for consideration for larger discussion also helps me to hear. So when I'm talking with friends or
Sure.
other parents, what y'all have said as well. Thank you.
No, I appreciate you. And I appreciate your leadership as well. Okay.
Yep, so we have Dima and then Akeem.
Okay.
Yes, so quick question for Mr. Drake before he leaves. Is today's meeting, are you going to present new numbers for capacity or explanation of why they've changed so frequently? I just want to know, what is the content for the presentation in terms of updates to capacity and enrollment numbers?
Yes, we will at the 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock meeting today, we will be going over our capacity methodology and then talking specifically about the change in the Midtown High School capacity from 1525 to 1700. I'm sorry, from 1700 to 1525. So we'll be talking about those details.
So is it kind of an explanation of how it went down from 1700 to 1525? Or is it an explanation plus what kind of classes are being taught in those 7 lost classrooms and what's the utilization of those classrooms?
We will be talking about those 7 classrooms and about how Sizemore looked at those and how APS looked at those in conjunction with our review with the principal.
Okay, and will there be any explanation for why Howard's numbers also went down by 300 seats?
We don't have that explicitly in our presentation, but we can have something available when that question comes up.
Okay, thank you. That's my question.
And then just to add on to it, Dima and others with similar questions, the facilities have been keeping a running list of Q&As that we get into Let's Talk. And so kind of an FAQ document, I'm sure will be part of this process so that it's all put out there for everyone. So we're working on that, Dima.
Thanks, Travis.
Yeah. Thank you both.
Yep. So
Thank you.
Akeem and then Whitney. Oh, I'm sorry, board member.
Hey, you're good. I mean, Keith, come on. You're good. Let's go.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, Michelle, board member Michelle Olympiadis. I think I'm saying that right. I'm sorry.
You're fine. Michelle is fine. No board member if it is. Michelle's fine.
I just have one question for Mr. Drake before you hop off. Over in the Southwest Atlanta area, we have a project coming up with GDOT, and I don't know if you all have been talking about that, but I know they came and received community feedback 2 times already, and I have not seen anyone from APS at the table. But they are essentially changing the 285 and 20 interchange, which is going to affect 3 different clusters in that one area because they're demolishing 2 bridges. And I know that we have master facility planning coming up later today, and I'll get more in detail later. But do we have a plan around that as well to make sure that our students aren't going to be just sitting in traffic?
Yeah, we met No, sorry. Michelle, do you want to say something?
I did. Mr. Drake, walk me through it because I don't
Sure.
know what he's talking about. It's not
Sure.
my neck of the woods. So
Sure.
you got it. Walk me through it and I'll take notes.
Sure. On the west side, 285 and the 20 interchange, I think it's gonna be about 4 or 5 years out by the time they start. GDOT did come to us, I'd say about 6 months ago. And they came and made presentations directly to facilities. We brought transportation in. Most of these impacts, obviously, as you know, are going to be bus transportation. We did give them some feedback on that, and we are aware of the various bridge closures and all that. And it's still fluid at this point because they haven't tied down that time frame and exactly how they're going to be doing a lot of those closures and all that. So, but they've come to us and we've had our own direct meetings with us because they know we're one of the big stakeholders in that area. But I
Okay,
appreciate bringing that up.
yes, sir. I would just ask, like, going forward though, because they are looking to finalize that plan by Q3 of 2024. And right now they're taking in our feedback, and they're about to go ahead and start bidding for the contractor and stuff. So I would really want APS to be at the tables very early, so that we're very strategic around the traffic in the area. I don't know if you're familiar, but I've been over there all my life, and coming up Hightower is crazy, especially right there by Doug. And then over by Harper Archer is going to be super crazy.
Yep.
Then with the detours, because you can't get on 20 from 285, that's going to cause other issues.
Yep.
So I would really want you all to be at the table early.
Yep, and we were at the table 6 months ago, and I am familiar. I do live in Southwest Atlanta myself, so I'm very familiar.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Akeem, just just keep me informed, and I'll hit up Mr. Drake, which I appreciate him being able to stay with us this morning. All right, Keith, we're going to Whitney.
Good morning.
Whitney and then Patrick. Good morning,
Good
Whitney.
morning. So as far as facilities, and I know this came up on Katie's call as well, we've just seen huge attrition through people being unhappy with APS, and they're just either choosing to move out or leave. And so I'm just questioning, when you're looking at capacity models, I know that some of those are forward looking and some of those are backwards looking, but are we taking into account the percentages and numbers of kids that are just deciding to just leave APS before we rezone? Because I think the rezoning is also going to cause an attrition of people being unhappy of where they're being sent to school.
Whitney, I think I think your points are well taken. And this goes back to, like I said earlier, and again, Mr. Drake, I know you've got like 2 minutes or 1 minute. I think people want to know what's going on with respect to redistricting. And the sooner we can share that with folks, what your recommendations are, I think the better.
Sure. Our meeting today is to set the table to talk about the annual capacity review process. As part of that presentation, we'll be talking about that for the Midtown and the Jackson. We are proposing to present those options on March 8th and March 9th. We'll have a noon and a 6 o'clock meeting. So that's the time frame for when those various options will be released. And we're looking forward to having those discussions again and gathering feedback from the community. And then after we get that feedback from the community, we will then come back for the week after spring break with a staff recommended option for Midtown and Jackson. And we'll get additional feedback. And then if it does require redistricting as part of those options, it will go to first read in May. So the timeframe has been set. And to talk specifically about the attrition, we do look at this is before any type of proposed redistricting. We do look at how many students are matriculating and what those attrition rates are. That's how we do our forecast. We do our kindergarten numbers based on the number of live births in the attendance area 5 to 6 years prior. And then I think your last piece about attrition is, I think your was more of a comment about that if there is redistricting, there may be additional attrition. Is that what I'm hearing correctly, Whitney?
Yes, I would anticipate that, yes.
Okay, I appreciate that input.
And Mr. Drake, if I can add to that, just as a more so as a constituent and not a board member, is that what we continue to see in District 3 are properties being bought, rezoned, resliced, and multiplied. So we've gone from ranch houses to big homes on multiple properties. I mean, literally right over here at Wessington and North Highland, which is literally around the corner from me. We used to have apartments there for years and they sold it. And now we have 3 new homes. If I talk to my good friends over on the east side of the city in City District 5, you should have more than a dozen new addresses that were not in APS's, for lack of better words, not in APS's Rolodex of places to have kids live at home. They're new addresses. And that's going to continue to happen. And I'm sure they'd like for me to be out there a lot more than I am, but I do get out there on occasion. And every time I go out, there are these new row of townhomes that are $400,000, $500,000, $600,000. And God bless anyone who can go do that out the gate. But we're going to get more and more kids, and we're getting more European in our mindset that it's okay to be in a smaller space and have your kids. It's no longer this idea of hey, I've got a 2-1. A family with a 2-1 can have 4 kids. Sorry. I think we need to change our mindset about what a 2-1 really means and where people are willing to go to have whatever it is, the lifestyle that they choose, given how much they want to spend. I think that's a fair statement. And that's just kind of where I sit on that. All right, Keith, sorry. I'm rambling, and I see that we've got Patrick and Dion, so let's make sure we get them in.
Yep, so Patrick is next, and then we have Eden, who was having trouble with the hand raising feature, and so Dion, you will go after Eden goes.
Okay, whatever we need to do. All right, and then I see Brittany's put her hand up too, so let's get everybody in.
Okay.
All right, thanks. I have, I guess, 2 questions. One, this decrease in capacity is pretty significant, 10% loss in capacity, and that really changes some of the options. So one of the thoughts that I have is that it's important that parents have a chance to digest these changes and kind of what it means for the possible options. And the fact that there's going to be solutions put on the table so quickly in 1 month, and then these are going to be decided on in 2 months. One question is, do you support extending that timeline so parents have more time to react, understand these changes, understand the options before we make these decisions? And then my second question is, can we have a process where if we first determine is rezoning necessary, or is there possible solutions that don't understand rezoning? And then once we decide if rezoning has to happen, then we decide what it looks like. So we're not trying to combine all of these things together. And, if you would be supportive of that.
Yeah, I asked a lot of questions. And that's good thought. And I think a lot of us have given a lot of good thought to all of that. from a personal standpoint, and it's not a board standpoint because board's a little bit different than my personal standpoint, but from a personal standpoint, I've always advocated for the administration to please let us know what's coming down the pipeline so that we understand where we need to go, if that makes sense. I do not believe that these last minute, and that's not the right word. I do not believe that decisions that are made in a sense that makes people feel as though they're in a last minute scenario is fair. I do not believe that. Okay. I do not believe that at all. And I have always advocated to make things important for District 3 and to be quite frank, important for APS. And those are two very different scenarios, although they actually have the same philosophy or the same bread or the same core. It's just we have to get there in different ways. With respect to what you're talking about, I will do my best. And again, I'm one of 9. So you have to keep in mind that, and I was laughing about this with a person the other day. Many times I'm a lone wolf, and that means I'm a sole vote. But I think my sole vote is not necessarily representative of District 3 because I know that we know how to get things done. It's representative of what I believe needs to happen in the district, if that's fair. And Patrick, you let me know what I missed on all your questions because I think there were about 4.
No, I think to your point, I think families do feel like this is being rushed. And that is what we don't want to happen. And if that means that we need to also be contacting the other board members, then that's also useful information to know.
I think that's fair. And I've always been kind of in this position for a long time that it would be nice to have like 4 or 5 years out, right? Like if you know, like I'll use my own children. My youngest is in 9th grade. If I know she can't go to Midtown and she has to go wherever, and I'm not dismissing any of the high schools, and I'd be happy for her to go to Jackson and I'd be happy for her to go to Washington. But if for some reason we decided as a family that that's not the right course, can you give me a year or 2 to figure that out?
And is it the board that determines the timeline or the superintendent, or can you talk about
It's the recommendation from the district. And yes, the board does ultimately impact that. So they either approve the recommendation or they do not. And then that kind of goes back.
But it's the board's decision.
Of course. But again, it's 9 people deciding.
And who is in charge of the recommendation from the district? Who leads that?
The superintendent.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Patrick. So again, we're gonna go Eden, and then we'll go to Dion.
Thank you so much. Michelle, I just wanted to thank you for being here today. And you started off the conversation about the facilities topic, addressing that you wanted to sort of make sure that there are rumors out there. And that's kind of was my question that I proposed in the chat to Travis. And I understand that today's meetings about the facility are really like an overview to set the stage and that scenarios are not set to come out for another month. But there are rumors out there and there are conversations being had. And among that, for this conversation to be impacting the Midtown cluster, not very long after we've already all been consumed by what just took place within our cluster for the new elementary school, the timing for this entire process to take place with the meeting tonight, the scenarios next month, a potential first read coming down the pike, the timeline lays out for this entire thing to be decided before the first day of school for the new Virginia Highland Elementary even opens, a very, very important thing that happened to this same cluster. So you're talking about the potential of an entirely new scenario happening to the same segment of the community in a very short timeline. And I think people are meeting fatigued. And so my concern is there's a percentage of the population in this community that is meeting fatigued and won't pay attention. Then there's another part of the community that rumors are swirling and people are getting all up in arms or frustrated, or everything is just going to cycle together. So to carry on to what Patrick said as well, the timeline is very important to this. I think it needs to be understood, and I also think it needs to be very, very transparent. If you know there are rumors happening out there already, talk about them. Please, please, please do not wait another month when you know conversations are being had. And Michelle, I appreciate you so much for saying that at the forefront of this conversation, because you know they're happening as well. So maybe there aren't official scenarios out there, but I would also be nervous if there really are not official scenarios out there and they're going to all come together in the next few weeks. That means they're being rushed. So please, 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 there's got to be something to come to a head here.
Okay, all right. I think that's a fair statement. And I made notes. I think that's fair. Yes, anyways, I don't know how to tell y'all this. Anyways, I have a lot of whatever, we all have other stuff we have to do. And I had a lot of other stuff I had to do for the past 3 weeks, and APS was not a priority. I think that's the fairest way to say that. And yesterday I got on the phone with a couple of folks, and you're right. You're absolutely right. There are a lot of rumors out there that I just need to do a little bit of homework on and try to figure out where we're headed. And to your point, and I appreciate the administration being on the call. I don't know if the administration, I don't dismiss what the administration does. I just don't know if it tunes in with where our community is, if that makes sense. Because when I get a call and someone's like, and this is funny. It's a friend from East Atlanta. He calls me and he's like, "Did you see the petition?" And I was like, "Which one?" And I didn't know we had to talk about. Well, he didn't know we had to talk about multiple petitions, but that's exactly what we had to talk about. And anyways, you're right. We have to get this right, and we've got to get it clearer. And communications has got to step up a little bit more to help us figure out how to engage more authentically and right, and fair, to be quite frank, for everyone, not just in District 3, but everyone across the district. There's a lot that we need to get done.
Hey, Board Member Olympiadis, may I share a couple of things that may be helpful?
Yes, of course. I appreciate it, Mr. Norvell, please.
Sure. Number one, on your response about the administration understanding the community, of all the communities, at least on this side, this one I understand. I am in it. I hear it every day, just like you. I am not blinded by the amount.
Yeah, so Mr. Norvell, can I share that you're a Maryland parent?
Yeah, I mean, and so I step out of some of these conversations specifically to kind of avoid, but there's not a misunderstanding of the needs and desires and the negative experience that a lot of people have had in the Midtown cluster over the past, probably 10 years now. And then I rely on a lot of my other colleagues like Keisha on here and others who have their pulse check on other parts of the system as we're doing the same conversation in other areas like the Douglas cluster and the Jackson cluster. As for rumors, I did share at Katie Howard's meeting last week, I believe, and then happy to share again here that there are no options. While yes, there is obviously exploration of ideas to then bring to the community in March, those things change every few days as we get more feedback internally and review them and look at data. And so we would hate to put something out to the community and then some internal reason says that's not feasible. We hear a lot about make sure whatever comes to the community is feasible before it comes out. So we're just trying to make sure that that all of that is kind of comprehensive and included. I will say that this is a new process that came out of facilities master planning to provide some of that longevity and stability that board member Olympiadis mentioned. We have not done annual reviews of capacity and projection and plans. It has been every 10 years, a big thing happens and we work on it or we do little changes here and there. This is an attempt to do it every single year to review, look at within 5 years, identify solutions to address it. Unfortunately, it's happening to the same community, which is a realistic and legitimate concern that should continue to be brought up. The timelines are also such that we've been talking high school capacity all last fall to come up with solutions. So we spent 4 months doing focus groups and engagement around high school capacity to identify the solutions that we can bring to you in March. And so it's not, so this engagement and many of the people on here were part of those focus groups and those ideas. And so hopefully you'll see some of your ideas in whatever comes out, both today and in March. And we also do try to align some of our processes with school districts who do have clear plans and processes in the past. So we look at Fulton County and DeKalb County and looking at their path for redistricting, and some of their timelines are very similar to this one that we're starting. Doesn't make it any better or worse, but just sharing some of our thoughts behind how we built it. Sorry, board member Olympiadis, wanted to share a few things.
You never have to apologize, please. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate, I don't want to be dismissive. I really appreciate the work that APS does. It's just somehow we've got to make it better for the community to understand. And it's things like this, it's doing these monthly meetings, I guess, and I don't know what else we do. I think there's, there's other things that we do where we're trying to help engage you. And honestly, y'all know, I mean, if you've got good ideas, you share them with me and we'll make sure they happen. I don't ever think I'm dismissive of that. Okay, I'm getting more and more folks who want to engage. So
yep, so we're gonna go Dion, Brittany, and then Akeem.
Okay.
Good morning, Dion.
Hello, good morning. Are we still on? I have 2 sets of questions. So we're still on facilities and planning and redistricting and rezoning, is that correct?
Well, Mr. Drake has left, so whatever.
I joined the meeting.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Whatever you need to do, we'll make sure it gets taken care of. I mean, it's. I mean, I'm taking notes.
So okay, so I'll stick on that point, and then I have some other issues that I need to bring up that are pertinent. I put them in the chat, but I would like to speak to the attention. In terms of the rezoning, redistricting, Travis, what you just shared with us, a couple points that I would like everyone to hear. Please remember that every single board member is responsible for all children across this district. So I can't encourage parents enough and teachers and stakeholders enough to engage all Board of Education members in giving them this feedback, because they all have a vote and things, and they will all have a vote in May on decisions that impact potentially your family directly. So, I think sometimes as a cluster over the years, I've seen that, Michelle is receptive to us, and I appreciate that, Michelle. We've spent a lot of time having conversations, But now in just engaging more of the last 3 years, I've understood that now all Board of Education members have a responsibility to answer our phone calls, to speak with us, to engage us and hear us. Many times if they don't hear directly from us, we are discredited and decisions are made that could be different. So I can't encourage enough people to engage, start calling, start emailing, start asking for meetings for all Board of Education members. They're having one-on-one meetings, they're having small group meetings, they're having school meetings. The time is now to do that. Also, I would highly recommend people having meetings, and Travis, I hope you bring the ombudsman to these meetings. We have gotten hit with a lot of big issues in this cluster, and we do need an unbiased person coming in here, maybe providing some support to both parents as well as APS and how to help. I know that you are a community member and have an executive position with engagement, and I appreciate all you've done. But I think given just the nature of the beast, I mean, in the fall, yes, there was high school capacity. We were also dealing with a major issue in employee relations, major issues with principal hirings at 2 of our cluster schools, major issues with day-to-day impacts of our children, from dress code to lunch to isolation. So respectfully, you know, that's where I think people and parents are saying, formally, you may have sent us out a Zoom about high school capacity, but we needed to prioritize that our children were being, you know, led down the hall like dogs, and, you know, advocating for a principal change and advocating that things were going wrong in employee relations and also human resources, et cetera. So I just don't want that to be overshadowed. And as someone said before, we are just slammed with meetings and slammed with issues. And that's the piece that I think APS administration is missing, and they need to understand. In terms of the annual report, I appreciate that that's being done. I heard the Board of Education talk about that and ask for that when Facilities Master Plan was provided. And you may have already talked about this morning. I apologize. I was in another meeting, but the annual report was not presented to the Board of Education. It was put in the agenda. It was asked to be presented to the Board of Education. So now we have an annual report that has not been presented to the Board of Education, and yet they're going to make a decision on the superintendent's what's going to happen to this rezoning and redistricting without even being presented that information. And if something else was said today, if the board is being presented that next month, I think that's great. But the board not being presented that information and being able to ask questions that their public has asked them and clarification on this new annual project that was done, that doesn't align with what my understanding was with that ask when we heard about that, the Facilities Master Plan. Last thing, yeah, that's the last thing on the Facilities Master Plan and redistricting and rezoning. And if I have 2 other issues, but Pierre or Keith, if you guys think we're staying on this topic and I can address the other topics, I would like to address what's going on with nutrition at Howard, and also accelerated math being taken away by the district in 23-24 and engagement around that. So you just let me know, Michelle, should I hold those 2 questions? I just want to make sure that I get those on the table today.
No, Dion, move ahead with, and I got you on math because I thought that one was quite interesting. Yes, please move ahead with your 2 others.
Okay, Travis, can you, did you know, I know you did, you do an amazing job.
You did nutrition too. That was the other one? Nutrition and
Travis, did you, yes, Travis, can you take back some of those things I just suggested? I'm asking you formally.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you take back some of those things to
Yes.
the rooms? And
Yes, ma'am.
I apologize if you've already spoken to some of those things.
Nope, and I actually sent a message to Keith to make sure that he was capturing it so it could be formally sent over, but I'll go ahead and kind of send over to about Howard, both accelerated math and about nutrition lines. I got it.
So Mr. Norvell.
I'm just talking about some of those. I'm just talking about some of those things with the ombudsman now being
Yep.
more actively
Yep.
involved, given the area we are in our cluster with APS administration and all the challenges we've had. I think they should be in a lot of meetings. In terms of nutrition, today it was shared to us that we do have 2 lunch lines, food lines at Howard. However, only one continues still to be used because it's not staffed by SFE or APS properly, and that is causing many challenges with the students and the staff, allowing them ample time to eat in the cafeteria. So that is one thing that I would like from an engagement process, from a staffing standpoint, if we can get an answer to that question. That's an easy fix. We are a school of 1,100 kids, and that should not be the issue. So if we could get some answers to that. And then in terms of accelerated math, we were told today that accelerated math is in place for next year as of right now, but we would like APS administration's formal statement on that. In addition, we were told that they are saying it is going to be taken away for 23-24. Our cluster has a large portion of high achieving students. And this speaks to curriculum, which I believe, Cynthia helped us out with at the last meeting. School-based, if this is something APS, we need to figure out charter system models, school-based solutions that supports our community. And our community is unique in that way. You can look at students who are advanced, and you can also look at the state funding of gifted, but we have a high proportion of students, and we need curriculum that supports those students. So Travis, if we would like formal engagement, if APS is going to be taking away this, and we are not able to provide this to our students in a school-based solution. And we would like that in a sooner rather than later fashion to be on the table on that conversation.
Mr. Norvell, okay, I saw the hands up, but I just want to make sure.
Yep, I'll track it down and find out what's happening.
Okay, so as a board member, again,
Sorry, that was a lot. That was a lot, Michelle. I apologize. And please, everybody know there's another Board of Education meeting Erica Mitchell is having tomorrow night. Get on that, and you guys need to let her know directly from you where you need help, where you have challenges, what you need help with.
Deanna, I appreciate everything that you have to say, and I always do. I just kind of want to be clear on this. And we've got a bunch of folks who want to talk, and I'll stay here as long as we need to talk. But I want to be clear on this. There's a philosophy about advanced placement, and I think constituents across the city need to decide where they sit on this. And I'm happy to share where I sit on this. I believe that the Atlanta College and Career Academy can host and sponsor AP courses and advanced courses, just like they do for technical courses, to have children across the district or students across the district go to school and get something more than they need. I will agree that we do have districts in APS that have children, as Dion explained, that are that can just naturally be advanced, just naturally can naturally go into advanced math in 4th grade. And I don't think that needs to be dismissed. That's just my personal philosophy. As a board member, if I hear from constituents that that's something wrong, I will listen to what folks have to say, and I will support that. However, what I believe is, if there are means to push children forward into better educational opportunities, whatever they are, we need to do that, be them technical, be them, higher ed, just to provide them an opportunity to survive. I think that's right. To live, it's not even survive, it's just to live. I think that's right. And what I've seen, it doesn't matter what I've seen, doesn't matter. So let's move on. We've got a bunch of folks who want to talk, and I don't need to talk. Let's hear Keith. Let's hear. I think Brittany's on tap.
Brittany and then Akeem, and then we're going to Amy.
Okay, great.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks for taking the time to meet with us. My number one concern is that Herring's contract is not renewed. So when will the discussions start for that, and what is your stance on that?
I know what my stance is, and I'm going to be totally honest with you. We've been asked as a board to not talk about our stance. And so I will respect my colleagues and what we've been told. I assume it's going to come up before the next election, because I think the next election is kind of, I'm not going to talk about all that. So y'all know that the odd number seats are up for election in the fall. So 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9 are all up for election this fall.
But typically speaking, or I believe last year, her contract was renewed in June, which must have meant discussions were happening now. Who said you shouldn't be allowed to discuss your stance?
I'm sorry, I'm not going to get into that because that's executive session. I'll let you take that up with the board chair.
Okay, I will. I appreciate that. I know you've seen the petitions. I know you've seen this test scores that 44% of APS is in the red zone for their MAP testing. The $95,000 luncheon, it just seems like a lot's going on, and to not be able to discuss that with the board member who's responsible for maintaining her employment is confusing.
I appreciate that feedback. And Brittany, I'm going to be very clear with you. When we dismissed Dr. Kostarfin from her contract, I was the only board member who read out a letter that clearly defined why I would not be supportive of her. And I was the only board member who did that.
And to be fair, I'm not discussing canceling her contract, just for when the discussion to renew. Does that make sense?
I hear you. No one has presented me a topic to discuss her renewal.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we're gonna move to Akeem, and then Amy, and then Lisa.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, of course. We just talked a few minutes ago. What's going on?
I'm just trying to get situated. Hold on, I was in the office. Hold on.
You're good. We're all here.
If you want, we could come back.
Please.
To you. Okay,
Come back to
Amy.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Of course. How are you?
I'm well. I'm exhausted. I know that everyone's already reiterated, but we're in the midst of setting up 3 schools here with Virginia Highland Elementary. Spark is going to be new next year, as will Lynn. And these conversations about Midtown rezoning are getting alarming and frustrating, and a lot of deja vu. I know I'm saying the same thing others have said. I just want to thank Dion for pointing out that we can communicate with all board members. I think everyone should, but I just wanted to implore you, Michelle, to please work to form coalitions across the board so that we have people other board members understanding our concerns as well. I know that often you are a lone wolf, and those are words you used earlier, I would just like to please ask that you try to, I know that you'll work with anyone, but please just try to form coalitions, and so that we are all represented. We are grateful for your representation, but we need more than just you. And so I just wanted to pipe in and just please ask in these coming weeks as you're coming up to speed to keep that in the back of your mind. Thank you.
Of course. I appreciate your feedback, and that's, yes, I do try to work hard with my colleagues to make sure, that I just want to be fair. District 3 is looked at as, I don't even know what the right word would be. An anomaly. I mean, we don't get the money that, well, here I go on my Michelle rant. And this is a Michelle rant. This is not a board member rant. The Board of Education in Atlanta Public Schools has a $1.4 billion budget, to which Midtown receives the least amount of money. So when I ask y'all to step up, I'm asking y'all to step up because I know we can. I don't think we should, but I know we can. And we're going to continue to go down this route. I've asked as board chair, as budget chair, I'm not board chair, as budget chair, I've asked that we try to figure out how to reallocate our funds. But again, that takes board leadership. It's not one board member or two or three. I need I need 5 people to agree with me and understand that when I say this about us, I say this about the city. We have $1.4 billion to help some of the poorest kids in the nation to have money go to their schools to help them. And again, I'm going to sound really fussy, and y'all can fuss on me, and that's fine. But Midtown receives the least amount of dollars, and we depend on our community to supplement what needs to happen. And we could talk about the state. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation, but come on.
So Michelle, if I could just jump in, sorry, because you raised a very good point, and I think that with all the passion that's going on, understandably so, about the capacity issues, I don't want us to lose sight that this is budget season, and like Michelle has noted, she has asked for alterations in how we give money to schools, because there are people on the board who would like to see us to fund schools first, all schools first, before we fund anything else. And it may be a little dry hearing about the student success funding formula, but it's very important. And it's very important, especially for a lot of the people who are on here, when you talk about the difficulties of setting up or reconstituting a school that's going to have fewer students, and that goes directly back to how we're funding the schools. And I think it's only fair for us to do a deep dive, or expect a deep dive for aligning the baseline funding for per pupil to our standards of service, so that we don't have to do the kind of drastic fundraising just to pay for things like because we pay for all of our teachers and everything with all of our money, and then there's before you buy the first textbook, and then you have to fundraise. So I would hope that people would raise their voices about the budget as well, and now is the time to do it, because we're in budget season, and bearing in mind that this needs to benefit all schools, all students, all schools, all across the city.
I think that was very well said. Thanks, Tamara.
All right, so Akeem is ready now. So we're gonna go Akeem and then Lisa and then Emily.
Okay.
Hey, so I mainly just have a comment about the state of the district and about the budget. Be honest, I'm not super satisfied with the level of customer service we're getting from APSL, the senior cabinet and leadership, being because our students cannot read on grade level, and particularly grades K through 8 is concerning, especially with kids below the Interstate 20, within the Mays cluster, Douglas cluster, Washington cluster, and Thorough clusters. They're performing below average, and that's majority of their students. Yet, Dr. Herring has spent $95,000 plus on one state of the district. When the governor had his state of the state, he only spent $7,500 to address his dignitaries. I really feel like that was a very absurd spending. Teachers continue to ask for a clear direction, plan of action from Dr. Herring with professional development and staff to support it. That $95,000 could have went there. We've heard time and time again that Dr. Herring has no real plan. 2020 and 2021, the whole time kids were home in mandatory virtual learning. Now we're $300 million of ESSER funding later, and we still are in the same predicament, even worse than COVID. We continue to hear across the district she has no plan for closing the achievement gap or addressing the 68.8% of students who are not proficient at ELA, nor the 74% of students who are not proficient in math. Yet another year could go by and we could still be left with this incompetent superintendent. My ask for you all is to, I know it's not the time to talk about renewing our contract, but I do want you all to know that I am not happy with Dr. Herring, and you all should not leave her in Atlanta to lead our children of 50,000 students. We need someone to come in aggressively to change that, to close that achievement gap and give every Black and brown student the best opportunities for life and career.
Akeem, I appreciate your comments, and I just want to make sure you're clear. Her contract, and that's a big conversation, her contract is up for renewal because she's signed through 2024. So we've got to figure out what we're going to do. And so I appreciate your feedback. You may or may not know me well, but I try to be a big advocate for all children in APS or all students in APS. And I'm very concerned about where reading is, especially, I know the big talk right now is 3rd through 8th, but if we could just get 3rd graders to read and have them read successfully.
Yes, ma'am, Michelle, and I have a few ideas about that. We can talk offline about that. There's some simple things because all it takes is for someone to care just a little bit, and it'll make a big difference. I'm a product of that. I really, truly believe that if someone cared just a little bit about the way our education system is right now, it could improve. And that's with anything in life. Generally, all it takes is for one person to care. Also, I'm most concerned in the Mays cluster about the integrity that we're getting from administration in the building and the senior cabinet. In particular, we were at the state of the district. I recall hearing Dr. Herring say, and I quote, Mays students are taking Google certified classes and they are currently enrolled with a Google certified teacher. When we inquired about that class at curriculum night, we found that that class is not true and that it has been offered through Coursera. That's not what was told to us, and that was a direct lie, and it shows the integrity around the district. There's no accountability, and I'm hoping that this board step up to the plate and hold her accountable. I mean, my God, I don't know anyone else with a salary of that size, and they get to just whatever they want.
Yeah, I got you. You have a number?
I do not, but if you drop it into the chat, I'll be sure to save it.
There's somebody, yes, I'll drop it in the chat. Okay, Keith, let's go to the next person. Akeem, you're good?
All right, so we're gonna go to Lisa, then Emily, then Dion.
Thank you. I'm following back to the comment I had initially when we were talking about the state of the district. I tried to watch it virtually and I found it very hard to follow. The sound was bad. I was surprised at the amount of money that was spent on that and finding it difficult to watch virtually. I guess I am also critical about what I saw. I've briefly worked in fundraising. I've worked for nonprofits. I understand what was said about trying to lure in more money by spending money. But I also think that it's the job of the leader of APS to make the case for funding education without spending that much money, at least what was seen. I also would wonder that company, and this is just pure speculation on my part, would be if I were being asked to give money to APS for education and I saw such lavish spending on an event like that when we have facilities and the state of the district has been done in school facilities in the past, like I would wonder where my money is going if I was giving money. So I just felt like that was just really poorly thought out. I understand behind it, but I would like to think that hindsight, something like that would not be a decision again in the future. I was really disappointed in what I saw.
Lisa,
I understand what the intent was, but I just feel like right now that was just really, that fell flat, I think, for a lot of people with kids in APS right now.
Yeah, Lisa, and I know Travis is still on here. There's a couple of other APS people on here. I hear you, and I went to, I had to go to a meeting where, you know, they're movers and shakers, and a mover said to me, and I'm not a mover or a shaker, but a mover said to me, he's like, I didn't get invited to stay in the district, but I hear it was all that. And I was like, I just want to say, yeah, it kind of was, and I'll make sure you get invited to the next one. I mean, it was almost embarrassing to be a board member and know that we had such a lavish event, which is fine. I mean, there's, like I said, it's my big fat Greek wedding. But the messaging with respect to where we're going and what we want to do and how we're going to make things better, it wasn't there. It wasn't there.
I think it was also the focus on the 2030, like I understood the 2036, but that's not the state of the district now for parents and kids who are here now and teachers. Like, I think that was also a problem. It just felt like, what am I watching? It really was hard.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was very much like, where are we now and where are we going, as opposed to where do we want to go? And I think we all agree that we want to go somewhere different. I don't think anyone in this city denies the fact that we want to have something better than what we have. But I agree with you.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't need an answer. I just wanted to put my thoughts out there. Thank you.
No, I appreciate it, Lisa. Always. Keith, where are we? We've got Emily and John.
Yep.
Hey, thanks again for having this call. I just want to echo Lisa's, sorry to put words in your, but disgust or questioning of that dinner. It just is, if I were a donor, I would not trust and want to give funds. I would rather see where dollars could go, and hosting it at one of the facilities would be a direct showing of where my investment could go. So I think that it extremely misled. I'd also like to echo Akeem's comments. I won't repeat all of those sentiments in the sake of time, but my comment and I guess question is that, as a parent, I feel like we're we're operating blind a little bit, and that there seems to be this plan that has been into place. You know, we moved into the district in our elementary school, which is Mary Lynn, because of the sterling reputation of the elementary school, and also being able to continue on to now Howard and then Midtown. And I feel like there was this there's this underlying master plan that APS is working off of, but then there's what they present forward to the community and the parents. Where are we with this, kind of underlying master plan? Because when we're talking about redistricting and rezoning, which is really the impetus of my question, is, it seems like there's these rumors that are going around, but they're based somewhere in truth. And it feels like there's what's presented to the community, but then there's also what's talked about behind closed doors. And those don't align. And as we talk about transparency, to the comment earlier of like, we need to address some of these rumors, that's how we bridge the transparency from feeling like there's a club that nobody's, knows what's happening, versus a real community approach to solutions to some of the problems APS is facing. So anyway, just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
I appreciate that. I'm going to talk to you as a friend, not as a board member. I'm just going to talk to you. Over the past couple of days, I've heard all these rumors about, what the administration thinks that they're doing and what they think they're not doing. I don't, as your board member, which I guess I'm working both chairs here. As your board member, I don't know. As your friend and as someone who lives in this community, and as someone who is trying to help, especially the East Side, we got a lot going on. I mean, the East Side's much more than us. But I will always work to make sure that we're moving in the right direction. And again, like I said earlier, a year is not fair. 4 or 5 years might be fair. But you need a trajectory. You need something to explain to you where you're going and why. And I think that's fair. And if you don't want to stay there, that's fair too.
But yeah, I think it's that, and I put this in the comments earlier, it's whiplash. It's whoever has the loudest voice directs the discussion, but the discussion is for 45 minutes. I'm exaggerating. And then it's done. And then the decision is made for, 6 months to a year later. And it feels very difficult to stay on top of it, and to understand what exactly is the plan. And if we did have time to ruminate about it, if we did have more than a few months to put together, thoughts and feedback and potential solutions as a community as well, that would be helpful. But it is whiplash deciding on, oh, well, this is happening now, go. This is happening now, go. So I would also reiterate the earlier comments that I don't think Dr. Herring is the right person to lead this district going forward.
And I appreciate you pointing out the superintendent, and I appreciate that that's my responsibility. But I also appreciate Mr. Norvell, who I've known for many, many years, who can listen to our community feedback and can restructure how this administration moves. And I mean, Mr. Norvell, I'm not putting you on the spot at all, but if you can't make it happen, I'm gonna make a call. But I think you can, because you've done an extraordinary job of helping this district overall. I think where we are, Emily, where I think we are right now is where we were, it's probably about 12 years ago. It's a very hard space. And I think we do have a team in place that can help us figure out how to move forward in the right way to rezone where we need to go. And that does not necessarily mean, and I'm going to say this very politely, that Centennial and or Mary Lynn have to go anywhere in 2024. I'm not saying that they may not move eventually, but you need to have a timeline of what your expectation is given where you are. And I'm not saying that one should move or one should not move, or they both need to move or they both not need to move. I'm not that person. And I think my history is very clear on this. I am very compassionate about keeping community together. I think if anyone can say anything about me, and there's plenty negative going around right now, but if you can say anything positive about me, I think you would say that I'm happy to keep community together and I'll figure that out. And so I want you to know that I hear you, and I respect your thoughts. And I respect your position, and I will do my best to do my best. And keep in mind, you've got 8 other board members who have to agree with me, which might not.
All right, we're gonna move to Beyond.
And then Akeem again. Okay, you know, Keith, I'm good for however long we need to be good.
If I think of
So, and I know we have that meeting coming at 12 o'clock that everyone should be encouraged to go to. So the state of the district now is putting out, or APS central office is putting out, we have more partners than we've ever had after this luncheon, and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, let's just be honest. There was a $15 million ask, which is 1% of our $1.4 billion budget. 1%. I'm not, I would love $15 million, but let's be real on what that ask is. It's a very small amount, and we know that we will get that. We've lost some partners over the last couple of years with COVID, et cetera, but it's the spending of money and use of resources, the accountability for goals and guardrails. For example, we used over $11 million in our ESSER funds, APS's ESSER funds, to pay for COVID testing when that was being provided by the state. And we could have used APS ESSER funds of $11+ million for something else, like one-on-one tutoring or small group tutoring. So again, it's this $15 million ask she's asking for. So I think that we need to put it all in perspective about what the realities of the students are. What we're seeing as parents is that there's spending of money, which looks frivolous to us, no plans, no exact action items. We're hearing that principals and, teachers feel that at the school level. We saw that with COVID and just the lack of direction and complete message. We're seeing that again with the switch of the curriculum with Amplify in middle school. Now the switch of the curriculum with math. And Travis, that's another thing that's on our plate. Right now, we're supposed to be reviewing math curriculum at elementary schools. And one of the weeks you have us reviewing it and it's available is a week that we're off school. Like, this is just getting now on people's radar. We don't even have school in session. So one of those weeks we're supposed to go into school and review it. And I know it's available for those people who want to touch it is when we're not in school. So Travis had that, like, that is thoughtful engagement. And so we go back and we talk about what we're seeing with our teachers, the Gallup results on employee satisfaction. We know that those are failing right now. We are failing teachers just in culture and climate, and they are leaving left and right. And I believe, Travis, you have spoken to that the Gallup results and our scores are right now, they are not fully connected with COVID. We can't use that excuse anymore. And the excuses now we're hearing, it's transitioning from not COVID anymore, but we need to continue with this superintendent and this leadership because it's stability, or because we don't have a succession plan. So we're forgetting about what's actually happening, the realities of the kids, the realities of what the teachers are feeling. There is no plan, there are no action items, and we don't have accountability. We've spent millions of dollars adding this 30 minutes on for an intervention plan with HMH. There has not been one data point presented to the public, I believe, or to the Board of Education. Last year, Secretary Cardona from the U.S. Department of Education in February said, every district, every parent, every teacher should be asking, and every board member should be asking their district, what has happened with our intervention? Are we seeing results? If we are not, we need to make a sharp change because we are running out of funds. ESSER 2 and 3 is left. That's all we have left. That's it. One more year, Tidings year, and we haven't even seen data. We are so behind the 8 ball on this. And in terms of, to speak to Lisa's point about 2036, I absolutely agree with her. I don't even know what 2036 is. Personally, I'm worried about my kids who are in school and that right now, closing gaps, resources that aren't available to them, how money is being spent, my teachers that are leaving left and right. A home I bought in the area, to speak to the other lady's point, I bought in this area because of the strong public schools, and my husband works in this area. So we are connected with community, to speak to you. APS has been failing us for a long time. I understand, Michelle, that I've read many of the policies that Board of Education members, there are legally things that you cannot speak to. And I know personally, after reading a lot of those, and some people not, that you are having to choose your words carefully. I know that you are very thoughtful with our community and you try to be honest where others play games with words. Other board members, I appreciate that you don't do that because that is often done. It is harder to be honest and not be calculated, and play word games. And not play word games. So I just appreciate that. I want to bring some things to the forefront and just let everybody know that board members may not be able to tell you where they're voting, but you can tell them how you feel, and you can ask them, which Michelle, I would like to ask you, because I know you can speak to this, and Tamara, and if any other board member is on here, I would like to know, we have 4 goals and 4 guardrails. I would like to know where you think if we are hitting the mark on those, if you can just go down. We have literacy, numeracy, of which you're meeting within next month to lower those standards. I have significant concerns about that because that is what the superintendent is being held accountable to, and you're lowering the standard for her. I have concerns about post-graduation. I have concerns that graduation rates are increasing, but our academic achievement is not. There's a disconnect there. We have concerns about college and career readiness. We have concerns about guardrail number 1, equity. We've had an equity department that's presenting to us saying they've only been, quote, operating for a year, but we know that policy has been in place, I think, for 3 or 4. Cynthia, if you're on here, if you could speak to that. We know that they infused a huge amount of money into that program, and that Tahita Baker-Jones started in the summer and came from the Harvard program with Dr. Herring. So she was hand selected to bring in. And we know we've used many of consultants to infuse that program to make gains. It has been 3 years of funding into that program. Guardrail number 2, stakeholder engagement. I would love as board members to know how you feel, if you feel APS and the superintendent, or just what you think we're doing as a district, if we're hitting that mark. Culture and climate. Travis, I haven't heard about, there was no ethics committee presented in December who was supposed to speak the employee relations, audit, and some of those things. That meeting was just canceled and fell off the record. Now it's not going to happen till March. Could you speak to culture and climate and what we're seeing with some of the Gallup results, what we're seeing with 20 new principals this year? Could you speak with innovation and accountability? I just found out Mays High School no longer lets their kids take their computers home. How are these kids studying for tests? How are they doing homework? This does not make sense. None of this makes sense. So I know that was a lot, and I apologize for everybody for listening. So I would like to know from the Board of Education members, do you think we're hitting goals and guardrails? And I don't want to hear that we're just instituting the goals and guardrails, because we know we have been working on that for years. And Dr. Herring has been a part of that and at the table for years. Thank you. And I'm sorry for my tone. I'm just so absolutely frustrated with how long we are allowing people to continue to pass the buck and add more time and more time and more time with another 1.4 billion, another 1.4 billion. Our budget is bigger than the city's. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dan.
I know I'm in charge, but I'm just asking, am I okay? Is it my turn or is it your turn? Keith, I'm talking to you.
Oh, yes, yes, it's on you.
You know me,
And Michelle, any other board member that's on here, I ask that they chime in because, you know, Tamara, I know you chime in. I didn't see Cynthia on here today, but, you know, we don't have monthly engagements with them, and often our questions are directed to you. I would love to hear maybe one of them have to say first.
I think that's fair. I just wanted to make sure I'm not off par. Yeah, just, you know.
Sure. And I will say that
I know that was a lot and that you guys have to tread lightly on this, but I appreciate it.
No, Tamara has something to say. So let's hear from Tamara, and then I'll give Big Daddy number one his position, which is.
And we have Erica on the call here as well, and if she wanted to chime in, you know, I think that what's good about us doing progress monitoring on a regular basis is that at every meeting is we are able to take a good hard look at what the data says. And this last go around, you know, we were presented with data that did not show that progress had been made toward the goal. So, you know, I think that anybody who wants to go back and look at the progress monitoring thing, I think that the process is a pretty good process in which you ask specific questions. Like it's not a piling on, you know, to the administration, but it is, you know, it allows you to ask those really hard questions of, you know, what makes us think, you know, that are confident that the strategy is going to work in the future if it hasn't worked, you know, to date. And so, you know, go back and look at that. It was just done last Monday. And so I think you'll see people confronting what we're seeing. And I don't know if Erica has anything she wants to add.
Okay.
Good morning, Erica. Thank you for being on today and engaging our community. I really appreciate you going above and beyond at this time and listening to us. And I reminded everybody that you have a meeting on Thursday. Again, you guys engage with Erica. She's another board member.
Thank you, Dion. Here's the truth of the matter. Are we hitting our targets? Are we hitting the goals that we identify and approve and adopted for the district? No. I got to be honest. I mean, everyone can read, everybody can see, but what are we doing to get to that point where we are hitting the goals and reaching the goals? That's the most important discussion. And that's the work that we're doing with a student outcome focused governance. That's the work we're doing with the goals and guardrails, like the progress monitoring. That's the work that we are doing. Are we there yet? But we're doing the work. The other thing is ensuring that when we know and we can identify where the opportunities are, that we make a shift to align resources, to align support for our schools, our teachers, to make that shift. Because it does us no justice to know what the issues are and we it. to correct when we see those opportunities. I am, well, everyone knows what I serve. I serve the majority of the Mays cluster and majority of Douglas clusters. And we have seen the data from those areas. We have. This didn't happen before the pandemic. What I mean is the scores were improving before the pandemic, but we know that the pandemic interference has an impact, but that's not an excuse, because at the end of the day, what are we doing to improve student outcome is where, again, the focus needs to be. I hear your community, Michelle, and their frustration, and I acknowledge that, because that's the same frustration I've been hearing across the city. And that's just real. That's just the honest truth. I'm not going to run from that. That's the frustration that I hear from my parents in my area. I mean, that's just the reality, and we need to own it. Now, how are we going to work together to create better opportunities and move the district forward? Because every child in this city needs to have an equitable education. That's just it. We all have different ways we think we should get there, but we have to work collectively and be on the same page to ensure that our kids are receiving the best that we can give them. And they're not waiting and waiting and waiting. And I know that's been the sentiment. What are we waiting on? We need to act now. And that's what the goals and guardrails are supposed to be in place to do. Action now. Do I think we should lower the goals and expectations? No, I have been very vocal about that. I don't think so. We have to have a certain expectation. We have to have a certain goal so we can reach to. We may not reach, but we got to come damn near close. But when you lower the expectation, what are you shooting for? What are you aiming for? And our kids deserve the best. And I will keep saying it. I will not stop saying it. We need to have a higher expectation for our children, but also for ourselves as adults who are governing this district, who work for administration, because the kids are depending on us to get it right. So when you, Dion, when I hear you talk about the frustrations, Akeem, when I hear you talk about your frustrations and other people that are on, I hear you, trust me. I feel it, I live it. I have kids in the district too. But it's up to us to make this right. We have a job to do. I have a job to do. We all have to play our part. We all have to work together and stop pointing the finger. I mean, I'm just being honest.
Thank you, Erica. And that's what we're looking for you guys to do. And I know being objective and doing your job and holding your one employee accountable is easier on things that are measurable. But we do need to look at engagement and the other goals and guardrails. I know that is harder to be objective. You can use there's some data there that we're not looking at, culture and climate, the Gallup data. You guys haven't been presented with.
And I'm working on
that.
I'm working on getting that
the survey data. So we are just looking for you guys. I mean, the reality of the students is we have been patient. We have had resources. It's failing us. And we are asking you to do your job now.
Yep.
Thank you.
And so after.
Thank you, Dion. If I could just real quick, one of the things that you guys are seeing here are 3 board members who are also parents of APS students. And so we understand the reality on the ground, and not that the other ones don't. You know, you don't have to have a kid in APS to have that kind of empathy and passion and understanding. But you know, it's personal when you have kids, you know, that are in the system as well. And we take this role very seriously, and we'll be working, you know, together to make sure that we try to do right by all of our kids and make sure that there's measurable action, because we're not there. And so I hope you're hearing that. And thank you, Erica, for all of that. And I really support what you're saying.
Keith, Akeem's back up, so let's.
Yep, so Akeem will be our last speaker, and then we're gonna allow
Yeah,
you
and
to
then
close us out.
we'll wrap it up, but if somebody needs to talk, I think I put my number in earlier, but I can throw in my email. But let's let
Yep, Akeem,
talk again.
you'll close us out.
Hi, I just wanted to bring up the fact that I just received some notifications from a few students at South Atlanta High School, and they're very concerned because they haven't been able to play basketball in a safe condition. That's very concerning to me because that district produces some quality basketball players, and I mean, they're in high school. They should be able to play basketball in the gym in their free time. It's very concerning to me. About 6 students said that they don't have a backboard or something is wrong with some of their goals. Can we get that fixed? Like, and can that be a priority? I mean, like, we spent $95,000 for the state of the district to please outsiders. What about the kids that are inside? We got to remember who our customer is. It's disheartening. Like, down there in that area, they're already underserved. It's underprivileged kids, and they're trying to come to school, and they're
Akeem, I got you. Keith, you got this? Akeem, okay, I'm gonna throw Keith and Pierre under the bus. I don't think Pierre is on the line, but they're South Atlanta alums, so they better go get this straight, and I'll see y'all tomorrow if you don't.
No, I'm here, and I'm glad.
I was about to say, I'm calling Coach Ray as we get off the phone.
And I'm glad that Akeem recognized that quality basketball players come out of South Atlanta. So I do want to just acknowledge that.
I mean, excuse me, at Howard we had Walt Frazier, but I know y'all got some good guys down there too. So I'm not gonna throw it too much under the bus, but you need to get this right. This is unacceptable. Okay, I see Whitney's here. We're gonna wrap it up. Okay,
Yep.
Whitney,
I was just gonna say,
I called Whitney twice yesterday and she didn't answer my call.
I know, and I texted you. I'm just gonna say we're having the same problem at Howard. They broke the backboard and they've ordered a new one, but they can't pay the employees to install it. So it's been sitting there for 6 weeks, which is why the Howard teams have been playing at Midtown. So this is not just a South Atlanta problem.
Yeah, so we'll follow up on that. We'll meet with Jasper today and Larry Hoskins, and so we'll follow up.
Okay,
yeah,
if I
and I'm sorry, I didn't complete my thought.
Wait, Keith, if I need to call Walt Frazier, we'll make that happen. He's up in New York. I got him. But I'm gonna let y'all do your thing first, and then y'all let me know what we need to do.
We'll see Jasper today, so we'll have the conversation with him.
Okay, good. Just get it taken care of. It's ridiculous. I don't even want to talk to you about Midtown baseball yesterday. I mean, my son, anyways, I don't even want to talk about that.
Keith, this is Keisha. I know we're getting ready to end, and I was having some computer issues, but I wanted to end on a high note to share that we will have our annual summer camp expo and enrichment. It is hybrid. February the 28th is our virtual session, and March 1st is in person. We do have the information shared at all of the schools. We're also, we sent it to our board members. I put it in the chat early. I know the chat was running, but we would love for families to come out and register their kids for summer camp and enrichment. Thank you.
It sounds great. Could you send us a link at the board office so we can share it out?
Yes, I sent it to Pierre and Keith.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, board member Olympiadis, you'll close us out.
Okay. I think I shared my number earlier. I'll throw it in there again. Y'all reach out anytime. I am about 3 weeks behind on my emails, but just know that's a personal issue and I will get us caught up and I'll make sure that y'all know that you've been heard.
All righty. Thank you, everyone.
All right, everybody take care.